The hot wind lifted dust from the red stones around the Tower of Joy and braided it with the night-blooming scent of ghost grass, before it found Lyanna Stark, where she crouched in the far shadow of a half-collapsed stable wall. Every breath tasted of iron and sand. Inside her quickened 2 heartbeats that were not her own. They fluttered like trapped sparrows whenever the wind shifted, as though the children already feared discovery by the armored giants who guarded their mother's gilded cage. She pressed a trembling palm to the gentle swell of her belly, feeling the twins kick, first one, then the other, as though reminding her that dawn was near, and choices once whispered in lovers' confidence must now be shouted in steel. Rhaegar had spoken of songs, of promised princes, of dragons hatched from stone and wolves who howled the darkness into chains. Yet even in his silvered eyes she had glimpsed uncertainty when the maester's tincture could no longer conceal that a single life had become 2. A dragon has 3 heads. Her prince would murmur at her bedside, but prophecy is a river, and rivers split when the land demands it. Lyanna felt the split each time she stirred in the night. The dragon and the wolf, the fire and the frost. Twin moons shivering above a world that could not bear their simultaneous rising. One child turned within her like a little knight practicing sword strokes. The other curled quietly, dreaming perhaps of clouds to ride. She had given them secret names. Beric for the restless one, Elia for the still. But names were dew upon grass. The sun of duty would burn them away. When they were born they would need truer masks, lest the realm draw steel on babes. A stone rolled near her boot. She tensed, listening. No voice followed, only the hush of mountains and the drip of a distant spring inside the tower court. Arthur Dayne had posted Sir Gerald Hightower to the eastern parapet, and Oswell went prayed below. But both faced north where Ned Stark must come, never south where a single girl might drown herself in miles of broken rock. They did not believe she would flee. Rhaegar had promised she was safe, and the Kingsguard obeyed the promise more than the prince who made it. Yet safety to them was a locked door. She slid along the wall until her fingertips found the old service arch that opened onto the goat path. Rhaegar had barred it with a length of oak, but the oak had warped in summer heat. Lyanna wedged her dagger under the brace and worried it until fibers groaned. Her wrists burned. Milk veins ached beneath the skin. Sweat stung her eyes. The twins thumped in protest, urging haste. With one last wrench, the wood surrendered and dropped on dusty toes, with a sound no louder than a falling peach. Beyond lay only starlight and a slope of broken shale. She tasted freedom in the cold. It tasted of winter storms rolling off the wall, of gray wolves singing on the Moat Cailin causeway, of sweet grass crushed beneath galloping hooves on green fields untouched by dragonfire. She slipped through the arch, knelt, and replaced the bars best she could, so that any search would think her still dreaming in Rhaegar's silken bed. The first descent nearly cost her everything. Loose stones skittered underfoot, and with every slide she feared the children would tumble before birth. She moved sideways for balance, one hand bracing the slope, the other guarding her womb. Mountains swallowed sound. Still she imagined that white figures watched from the tower top, pale as moonlit ghosts. The slope ended at a narrow shelf big enough for a goat or a desperate girl. There she paused to breathe. Breath was precious this far south. The air felt thin, as though dragons had devoured half of it long ago. She pictured Rhaegar's harp, resting beside their tangled covers, strings still resonant from the last lullaby he'd plucked for the babes. He played songs of sorrow, never of escape. In such songs, the hero was fate, and mortals obeyed. But Lyanna Stark was the daughter of a winter lord, whose blood remembered old kings that bent the world for love of freedom. She had danced in crypts, dared tournaments, stolen roses from knights twice her height. What were a few stones and 3 armored giants to a wolf maid, who carried prophecy in her ribs? The shelf narrowed to a seam and vanished under an overhang. Lyanna dropped to all fours and crawled. Granite shredded her cloak, scraped her knees, but she wore the pain like a bridal ribbon. She had exchanged northern velvet for Dornish linen when she first surrendered to Rhaegar's dream. Now the linen shredded on rock until she crawled half-clad, hair unbraided, skin streaked with rust dust. The mountain took the princess and returned the wild Lyanna, who once raced Benjen through wolfswood shadows with nettles in her hair. A moon passed overhead, thin and curved, like a reaper's blade. By its pallid light, she found a ledge broad enough to stand upon and risked a glance back. The Tower of Joy floated above the ridge like a lonely sea beacon, slate crowns glowing. She felt a surge of tenderness for the place where her children had quickened, but tenderness was a knife. Hold it too long and blood seeped through fingers. She turned her back on sandstone walls and faced south where the beginnings of a shepherd's trail melted into dark. Below, beyond jagged teeth of ridge and ravine, lay the empty valley men called the Singing Sands. Wind there sculpted the ground into ripples wide as a horse's stride. Rhaegar claimed he could hear music when he crossed it, 1,000 hidden bells chiming underfoot. Lyanna heard only silence and opportunity. Cross the valley, reach the Greenblood tributary, find a fisher skiff, and the twins might see a Northman's hearth. Yet every step carried her deeper into a kingdom that would brand her oathbreaker, kidnapper, whore, kinslayer. The crown prince's lover absconding with his heirs, twins no less, was treason shaped like scandal. The Iron Throne would send knives. Her own father might send a gallows. Sweat cooled to ice along her spine as she scanned stars for guidance. She had stolen no mount. A horse could not squeeze the goat path. She must walk until her feet split, then walk farther. If the babes came early amid stones, she would cut their cords with the same dagger that freed her door, and pray that wolves or vultures did not sniff them first. Such are the choices for maids who answer prophecy. She told the slow child in her womb, "Are you listening, little moon? Hear your mother's vow. You will not be pawn nor prize. You will choose your own song." The quick child somersaulted, and she laughed through a sob. In the soundless night, the laugh was a banner. Far above, a torch sparked along a parapet. Arthur Dane woke. Lyanna ducked low, hugging the rock wall, heartbeat matching the thunder in her ears. She drew the cloak's tatters over her shoulders and prayed the torchbearer thought wind had upset a lantern. Minutes stretched like drying hides. The torch vanished. When her pulse slowed, and began the true descent. Once off the first ridge, the slope gentled, and dry thorn scrub cushioned her steps. Owls glided overhead, pale and wordless judges. Each time the twins stirred, she whispered a litany to soothe them, half lullaby, half war cry, promising winter roses, wolf-pack kin, and sky-born dragons kinder than any forged of Valyrian steel. Promises were air, but sometimes air was all that kept a body upright. She walked until stars dulled and the eastern horizon bled saffron. Dawn found her crouched under a leaning sandstone arch, sipping dew from cupped leaves. Her tongue tasted of dust and fear, yet the sunrise painted her cheek with hope. In cold light she examined her torn garments. A riding skirt trimmed in silver, a sleeveless shift, a prince's cloak cut for Dornish nights, now ragged at the hem, too fine for traveling unnoticed. She unpicked the silver trim with her teeth and hid it under a cairn for some pauper shepherd to find. The cloak she reversed, so the faded lining showed, drab as field cloth. She smelled smoke on the morning wind. Not from the tower. This was wild sage burning, a shepherd's breakfast fire. Lyanna edged toward the scent until she saw a cluster of white goats cropping thorn under a rocky spire. A youth no older than 15 tended them, crook in hand. His sandals were leather, his tunic unbleached, his curly hair bound with a strip of indigo cloth. Eyes the color of baked mud widened when Lyanna stepped from shadow. "At sunrise the sand gives up its ghosts," he said in lilting Dornish. "Which one are you, lady?" "The hungry sort," she answered in the same tongue, learned from Rhaegar's tutors during endless tower days. She lowered her hood so he might see her bruises, the blood-encrusted knees. No crown, no rubies, just a girl chasing morning. The shepherd boy hesitated, gauging stranger against story. Behind his goats, the valley opened, bright and unforgiving. Lyanna offered her waterskin, nearly empty, as token of peace. He studied her with half a smile, and passed her a dried fig. She broke it in half, saved a seed for each child, and ate the rest quick as a sparrow before tears could salt it. The fig tasted of old summers beside the trident, when breaths of honeysuckle brushed her cheek, and Brandon boasted of how he would ride to Harrenhal and win a maiden's favor. Brandon was ash now, and Rickard charred bone, and Lyanna carried the last of Winterfell's laughter inside her stomach. The boy spoke again. "You walk the singing sands alone. There are serpents that prey on travelers, and not all crawl on bellies." "I carry a blade," Lyanna said. "Blades drink thirst faster than blood under this sun." He pointed with his crook toward a smear of green on the horizon. "The river called Sorrow's daughter runs yonder. 2 days hard walking. Follow the goats. They know where water sleeps. I will follow." She vowed. "Have you salt for trade?" He offered a pouch woven of reed and hair. She reached for the silver trim hidden in the cairn but remembered she had buried it. Instead, she loosed the wolf head pin that clasped her cloak. The one Benjen carved from weirwood on her last name day. The white wood gleamed like moonstone in the sun. The boy's eyes widened at the northern sigil, but desire won spear over curiosity. He passed her the pouch, and with a polite nod, whistled his flock onward. Lyanna tucked the salt behind her girdle and whispered thanks to old gods and new, to the children yet unborn, to the goat boy and his silent stars. Then she followed narrow hoofprints into the whispering dunes. The heat rose like an anvil. Before noon her cloak clung wet to her shoulders, and her skirts gathered sand in every stitch. She paced herself. 300 steps. Pause. 300. Pause. As a maester once advised for forced marches. At each rest, she massaged swollen ankles and sang to the twins in Old Tongue. So forgotten even maesters named it myth. Her voice cracked, yet the twins calmed, and in their calm she found fortress enough to stand again. At dusk, she reached a ribbon of cracked mud dotted by yellow sedge, the ghost of Sorrow's daughter. A trickle ran beneath the crust, and Lyanna dug with bleeding nails until water pooled in her palm. She drank in tiny sips, wet cloth for her brow, her wrists, her belly. She lay on her side beneath a leaning tamarisk, watching the horizon for riders. No banners yet. Perhaps the Kingsguard still believed her chambers locked. Night brought cold knives. She wrapped herself tight and slept in fits, dreaming of 2 babes suckling snow-white direwolves, while a black dragon circled overhead, wings blotting stars. In dream, the dragon wore Ned's face, stern and sorrowful, and when it breathed fire, the flames were blue as winter roses. She woke, gasping, heart galloping. But no dragon soared the dawn sky, only vultures tracing lazy spirals. The second day she walked south along the riverbed. Tracks of jackal and hare wove between those of wild ponies. When thirst gnawed, she tasted the trickle. When hunger hollowed, she chewed tamarisk pods that bled bittersweet sap. She spoke little, saving voice and thought. Yet memory jabbed her at each silent mile. Memory of harpstrings, of bare feet on rushes, of Arthur Dane reading prophecy from Ashai scrolls, while Rhaegar brushed her hair and whispered, "Light and dark, ice and fire, 2 blades forged in one womb." Late afternoon, a thunder of hooves shattered the hush. Lyanna flung herself behind a driftwood log, heart shrieking. Over the ridge burst not knights but wild asses flushed by a sand cat. They thundered past in a gray blur, manes flying. She laughed until tears streaked dust from her cheeks. Her laughter frightened a kestrel from its perch, and it took flight bearing a snake in its talons. Signs and portents, Rhaegar would claim. She claimed only breath. That night she built a fireless camp in a dry arroyo. She gnawed on the last figs the shepherd had slipped into her pocket unseen. When stars pricked the sky like pinholes in velvet, she let herself think of Winterfell's godswood. She pictured her father's stoic face, Catelyn's gentler worry, Benjen's untamed grin. Would they curse her for traitor's lover, or praise her for courage once they heard her tale? Truth was a blade honed by tongues. She could not know how it would cut until drawn. The twins shifted restlessly. Their minds were only sparks, yet sometimes she sensed them as bright voices just beyond hearing. One restless, one watchful. She closed her eyes and imagined threading her own soul between theirs, weaving wolf hair with dragon scale, until brother and sister understood they were halves of a whole. You will not be used against each other, she vowed aloud to the darkness. You will save each other or damn the world together, but none will drive a wedge of prophecy between you. A meteor burned across the western sky, its tail a gold-silver braid. She kissed her fingertips and offered the streaking light a prayer. Hide us, guide us, bind us. No god answered, but the meteor's trail lingered like a reminder that even falling things can carve beauty on the night. She slept, dreamt of snowdrifts rising on the wings of desert vultures. She woke to thunder, not ass hooves this time, but stallions shod in steel. Trumpets called. Dust plumes soared beyond the dunes. Lyanna crawled to the rim of the arroyo and peered. 4 riders bearing the sigils of House Dane and House Martell, and behind them, a standard shrouded in royal purple. King's Guard. Fear twisted her guts. Arthur Dane rode at the vanguard, dawn gleaming across his back. Beside him, Sir Gerald, ghostly in morning haze. They scanned the riverbed like men who hunted ghosts indeed. Lyanna slid on her belly into deeper shade. The arroyo hooked north. If she crawled under the bank, she might slip past. But for how long? Horses would find fresh tracks. She eyed the cracked mud where her footprints shone plain. She reached for a rock and began smashing the crust, scattering it in shards to disguise her passage. The act was futile as scooping the trident barehanded, yet desperation lent speed. When hoofbeats dimmed, she risked a glance. The riders had dismounted near a tamarisk. Arthur knelt, studying broken stems. Lyanna's throat sealed. She recognized his posture, the sword of the morning listening to dust. She backed away until thorns bit her calves, then turned and ran up the arroyo bend. Running was madness, yet stillness meant chains. Her lungs burned. Every stride jolted the twins hard against her ribs. She whispered apology between ragged breaths. Around the bend, the arroyo widened into a cul-de-sac, pocked with limestone caves. She dove into the darkest opening, mere heartbeats before shouting erupted behind her. Cool, damp air swallowed desert heat. Her eyes adjusted. The cave sloped downward, narrow but passable. She pressed deeper, relying on memory of grottos near the neck where Benjen once trapped tadpoles. Behind, dawn sabers sang as Arthur Dane drew. Light spilled across limestone as God's blade kissed sun. Lyanna crawled, palms slick. The cave narrowed until her belly dragged. She sucked breath and flattened arms. Granite scraped her swollen flanks. Sharp pain shot down her spine. The twins writhed. Shafts of light stabbed ahead, an exit. She clawed forward inches at a time, leaving blood streaks. Voices echoed behind, distorted. Princess, Lyanna. Arthur's voice, grief raw, as though he miscarried hope with every syllable. I swore to protect you. His words struck harder than threats. He believed he saved her by caging her. Love's chain is still iron. Her head emerged into blinding day. She slithered free, rolled down a slope of scree, landed in a thicket of saltbush. Upslope, the cave mouth yawned like a wound, but Arthur's broad shoulders could not fit through the narrower neck she had forced. His oath-heavy shout reverberated, then ceased. She would live. Today. Lyanna staggered upright, vision swimming. Blood soaked her shift where stone had torn skin. The pain of torn flesh was candle flame compared to the terror that the fall had harmed the babes. She pressed trembling fingers. Both heartbeats fluttered, frantic but strong. Relief tasted of salt and mud. She limped southward, weaving through saltbush until the desert blurred to watercolor. Sometime near midday she reached a shallow pool where her reflection swam in muddy circles. A ragged girl crowned in dust, eyes too old for 16 summers. She washed wounds, rinsed cloak, filled water skin. While she rested, a horn sounded far north, mournful as a dirge. Arthur, calling riders. She pressed on. 3 more days she skirted dunes and dry hills, shadowing the dwindling river. No more riders sighted her, yet each sunset she saw distant glints of steel. She perfected the art of stillness, crouching under scrub while stallions thundered past. One night, heavy clouds rolled in and rain fell in silver curtains. She lifted her face and drank sky water until her stomach sloshed. Lightning painted the world ash white, and thunder drowned her sobbing song to the twins. Storms were kinder than men. They never questioned why a girl wandered alone, swollen with new life. On the 7th dawn since her flight, she crested a limestone ridge and saw water broad as a lake feeding into the braided channels of the green blood. Beyond, cabbage fields quilted fertile flats. Willow groves shivered where fisherfolk dried nets. And far, far to the east on the horizon, pale against morning haze, rose the spires of the water gardens, oasis of princes, seat of Dorn's mercy. Somewhere within those walls, Princess Elia's children played. Lyanna clutched her cloak. She bore their half-siblings in her womb. She descended to the water's edge where coracles bobbed, moored to reeds. Frogs croaked, a lullaby strange and sweet. She untied the nearest craft, murmuring apology to any unseen owner, and settled inside. The coracle rocked under her shifting weight. Carefully she took the paddle and pushed off. The current welcomed her, gentle hands guiding northeast toward palm-lined shores. Here the green blood widened enough that Dornish patrols rarely ventured beyond central lanes. If she hugged reed banks, she might find a smuggler who would ferry her to the sea, then to White Harbor, then Winterfell. A chain of hopes, fragile as spider silk. Yet spider's silk traps dew and diamonds. Hours passed in rhythmic strokes. The twins slept mostly, lulled by river sways. When hunger stirred, she crushed reed hearts to chew. The taste was woody, but life rarely dresses in honey. Dragonflies zipped overhead, iridescent blue like eyes of some distant god. She paddled until sun crowned the sky, then drifted under shade to rest. She dreamt of a dire wolf pacing snowy courtyards, its fur half silver, half midnight. On its back rode a boy whose eyes blazed wildfire green and lips curled in dragon arrogance. Beside them trotted a girl astride a cloud of crows, each feather sharp as a spear, her smile calm as still water. Wolf and dragon, born to different skies, yet one turned always to watch the other. They sang wordless anthems that braided into harmony. When Lyanna woke, the echo of their twin song thrummed through her bones. By dusk, she spotted smoke curling above a reed village. Clay houses, thatch roofs, riverboats drawn to muddy docks. Children chased eels along planks. Red and orange lanterns winked on like early stars. Lyanna coasted to a quiet inlet and moored the coracle behind cypress roots. Her legs shook when she stood. She steadied herself and walked the village fringe until she found a tanner's shed with leather scraps piled high. Inside she scavenged a hooded vest, stiff with salt, yet serviceable. She cut slits for her swollen belly and cinched the sides. At least now no golden lion or silver trout sigil betrayed her. Voices drifted from a nearby dockside inn. Hard laughter, dice clacking, a flute weaving Dornish love tunes. She slipped through the rear door where kitchen heat and onion steam enveloped her. A stout woman slammed pots. Without turning, she barked. "If you're here for scraps, wash those hands first." Lyanna obeyed. In Winterfell's kitchen's Gage had taught her the value of humble posture. She scrubbed palms, then helped slice onions until her eyes watered for reasons beyond the blade. When stew simmered, the woman thrust a crust into Lyanna's hands. She devoured it in 3 bites. The cook eyed her belly, softened, ladled stew into a wooden bowl. "My daughter carried big like that. Twins," she said. "Rest easy at my hearth tonight. Sweeping room if you can still bend." Lyanna bowed deeper than queens. "Bless you," she whispered. She swept until floorboards gleamed. When chores were done, the cook, Maria, lulled her to a hayloft above the stables. There Lyanna lay listening to horses shift and sigh. Maria's kindness was balm, yet danger wore many masks. Before sleep claimed her, she tested floorboards, noted exits, counted breaths. Sometime past moonrise pain knifed her abdomen. She bit her cloak to stifle a cry. The twins lurched, one, kicking frantic. Too soon, too soon. She breathed slow as midwives taught, yet the pain spiraled. Fear tasted of copper and ice. Footsteps thudded on the ladder. Maria's lantern parted darkness. "What ails you, child?" Lyanna shook, teeth chattering. "Pains. Not time yet." Maria knelt, palm gentle. Her face set hard with experience. "I lost my eldest to fever for want of a midwife. I'll not lose you. Come." They crept down to the stable's rear stall. Maria spread clean linens on fresh straw. She fetched boiled water, herbs, oils. Lyanna labored as storms battered the metal roof. Hours blurred. She drifted between agony and dream. Ned's voice scolding her for riding in spring snows, Brandon's laughter ringing from a pyre, Rhaegar's harp singing of doom and love. At dawn, a cry like shattering glass pierced stables. Lyanna wept as Maria lifted a squalling boy, red-cheeked, fists swinging. Moments later, another wrenching surge, and a quiet girl slid into the world, eyes open, serene, dark as river stones. Maria laid them on Lyanna's chest. The boy rooted for warmth. The girl watched with grave wonder. "Twins?" Maria marveled. "Fortune multiplies." Lyanna kissed each damp brow. "Fortune divides," she whispered, thinking of prophecies severed like lightning-split trees. One child would carry wolf blood north. The other might yet breathe dragonfire. To keep them alive, she must sever them from each other and from herself. Only then could they reunite years hence, stronger for the parting. Maria worked swift, cords tied, afterbirth buried beneath juniper toward spirits. Lyanna felt light, empty, aching. She named the boy Jonal in her heart, the girl Niessa, knowing she could not speak those names aloud. When sunlight spilled amber across straw, Maria handed her river reed paper for swaddling. "Rest now," she said. But rest was luxury. Lyanna's ears already strained for clamor of pursuit. Kingsguard, Martell outriders, assassins in quiet cloaks, one step behind. She fed the twins from breast until they slept. Then she rose on unsteady legs and unwrapped her tattered cloak. From its lining she tore 2 strips. Around the boy's wrist she tied cloth embroidered with pale gray thread, the last echo of Winterfell. Around the girl's wrist she bound a strip whose weft glittered faintly, threads of Rhaegar's silver harp, strings she had hidden long ago. 2 tokens, wolf and dragon. She turned to Maria. "I must beg another kindness." "No coin needed." Maria's eyes softened. "But no, this is a place of ears and tongues. Men hunt rumors like hares. I have no choice." Lyanna swallowed. "I must find a ship soon." "Fisher's sloop?" "Muggler's knot." "Anything heading north?" Maria nodded. "There is one man who sails by moon alone, takes no questions. He leaves tonight on ebb tide." "Nemsan." Lyanna's knees buckled with relief sharp as pain. But the twins? A moon-driven smuggler's boat was coffin for newborns. Yet staying invited blades. Choice was arrow lodged in flesh. Draw it or bleed slow. She would draw. Evening painted the river bronze. Lyanna, cloaked and hooded, walked Maria's daughter's hand-me-down sandals toward the quiet pier where lamp smoke curled. She carried the twins in a double sling fashioned from the tattered cloak, their warm bodies nestled against her ribs. Every step jostled tender stitches, yet she strode with head high, the ghost of Winterfell's daughter lit in her gray eyes. The smuggler waited at the pier's end, face hidden by a broad-brimmed hat. His craft was sleek, dark wood oiled to mirror. No name carved on prow. He glanced at Lyanna's burden and grunted. "Maria vouches." "She does." He extended a rough hand. "Payment?" Lyanna surrendered the last of Rhaegar's rubies, 3 stones sewn into her belt. Their blood-red hearts glittered as though recalling a dying dynasty. The smuggler tucked them away without awe. "Sit aft. Keep babes low. We sail within the hour." "Da." Lyanna eased into the boat and arranged cloak against chilly spray. She kissed each twin. "You must sleep now, my sons and stars," she murmured, stealing Rhaegar's endearment. "But remember, the world is colder than song, and truth sharper than steel. Protect each other from both." Moonrise found the vessel gliding on silken current. Reeds whispered farewell. Lyanna did not look back. Forward lay uncertain seas, storms, war, and the rending pain of soon-come parting. Yet somewhere beyond those waves waited Winterfell's fractured banners and the lonely echoes of a prophecy now divided. Wolf to north, dragon to south. Twins, destined to mend what centuries had sundered. Under argent moonlight, with river wind combing her hair like ghostly fingers, Lyanna Stark began to sing. Not Rhaegar's melancholy ballads, but the wordless tune of northern lullabies, a mother's promise woven of frost and starlight, carrying across dark water toward horizons that trembled with dawn. Oh, gay. Moonlight swelled the green blood into a ribbon of hammered silver, and the smuggler's craft rode it like a shadow stitched to water. The man at the tiller called himself Corlys of the Brine, though Lyanna doubted that was the name his mother whispered over a cradle. Smugglers wore selves like borrowed cloaks, changed them when the wind shifted, discard them when blood stained the hem. Yet Corlys kept 2 rules as faithfully as any septon kept 7. Pay was paid, and secrets stayed drowned. Lyanna nursed the twins on a pallet of tar-scented canvas beneath the low sweep of the gunwale. Each suckle felt like talons on raw flesh, but she bit her lip until salt met copper and reminded her she still bled, therefore still lived. The boy, Wolf Quick Jonel, drank greedily and then slept with a fist curled against her heart. The girl, Storm, still Nyassa, latched softly, eyes half open, absorbing world and mother in equal measure before drifting into dreams that fluttered her lashes like raven wings. Corlys worked the sweep with slow, powerful strokes. Now and then he spat into the river to read the current, the way other men read clouds. Behind them the lanterns of the Reed village receded until they diffused into night haze. Ahead, cane brakes whispered to invisible predators. Lyanna listened for pursuit. No hoofbeats, no horns, only the scrape of wind through papyrus and the occasional yelp of a marsh dog chasing phantom prey. Near midnight the river widened, and dark water swallowed its own edges. Corlys doused his stern lamp until only starlight rimmed the planks. Once, Lyanna would have feared such infinite dark. Now she welcomed it as a cloak thick enough to hide a continent. She dozed in fits, surfacing whenever Jonel whimpered, or when pain stitched her abdomen. At dawn, faint gull cries told her they were close to brine. Corlys touched the brim of his salt-crusted hat. "Tide's with us. We'll kiss the open sea by sundown." She studied his blunt features, a scar across one brow, a nose broken more than once, eyes the wary green of river slime. "Where do you make port?" "Where gold guides us." He nudged the tiller. "I know coves along the cliffs of Crackclaw, beaches past the Arbor's wine harbors, even a cave near the Sisters where the tide drags your keel across gravel quiet as sleep. But if your heart longs north, White harbors the gate, and its garrison eyes every hull that drifts close." Lyanna threaded her fingers through Nyassa's hairless crown. "I need shore unseen. Do you know the estuaries west of the Long Claw? Crannogman country?" Corlys spat overboard again, thinking, "I can slip you into the wash of widows, though the shallows there bite holes in honest boats. But you're set on bog land." He eyed the twins. "Strong lungs on those. Fens breed coughs that kill slower than blades but surer. They'll breathe northern fog or none at all." Her voice left no margin. Corlys grunted approval. Harder to track footpads in peat. "Fair." He scanned the sky as though reading runes. "Morrow's sunset. I can nose into the delta at the Widow's Wash, 3 leagues east of Greywater Point. Beyond that, only the next ghosts guide you. Ghosts and friends." She dared hope Howland Reed still lived. Before Harrenhal, he spoke shyly of swamps that swallowed armies. If any man could whisk wolves and dragons into eel-bound silence, it was Howland. Corlys docked his smile. "Then we hold for tide change." He tossed her a satchel of hardtack. "E8. You look carved from tallow." She softened a thank you onto her tongue and swallowed the bread so fast splinters scratched her throat. Afterward, she coaxed river water into a cup formed by her cloak's fold. The twins fed again, dozed, and woke as the boat rocked into brackish tide. Daylight burned fog to rags, revealing the river mouth where reeds surrendered to sandbars and gulls squabbled over stranded mullet. Corliss raised a triangular sail stitched from patchwork canvas, and the vessel angled toward open sea. Wind lashed salt into Lyanna's healing wounds. She welcomed the sting. It reminded her she navigated beyond prophecy's cage. Hours slipped, waves grew, and the estuary narrowed behind until the southern continent felt like a myth told by fevered children. Here, on restless waters, names warped as quickly as clouds. She whispered fresh ones to the twins. Snow and sand, Stark and sand, testing each for weight and stealth. None yet felt true. Near dusk clouds muscled together, bruised purple at their bellies, and the sea's surface blistered with chop. Corliss cursed softly. Storm strain north. Sails a shroud if we keep her high. He reefed the canvas until it looked a ragged swallowtail. Wind keened through cordage. The mast bowed like a pilgrim. Lyanna secured the twins beneath the benches, lashing herself alongside with length of rope so that each heave slammed her, but did not cast her overboard. Rain arrived as a sheet of needles, followed by thunder that shook the boat's ribs. Waves reared, white manes ramming planks. Corliss fought tiller and sea in equal measure. "Hold fast, wolf lady," he bellowed, words ripped ragged by gale. Mother Royne births worse tempests than this. Lyanna answered with a grin carved by terror's whetstone. She had ridden winter squalls down Moat Caelan's causeway and galloped pony races through sleet. Yet nothing matched the ocean pitching its full breadth beneath you, sucking at your soul to feed cold gods. Each pitch jolted the twins awake. Jonal wailed first, an angry, hungry roar. Nyssa followed with a softer, keening cry. Not fear, but empathy. Even at moments old as air. She listened. Lyanna unlashed one arm, braced her back, and eased them to breast. Milk flowed though her body wanted to hoard it. She crooned Winterfell lullabies, letting the rhythm mask thunderclaps. The salt spray washed tears from her cheeks before they could taste. Night drowned the world. Corliss passed her a phosphor lantern sealed with wax to keep water out. Its green glow painted their faces corpse bright. She saw in his eyes the same calculation she had seen in nights at tourney. Weight versus wind, odds of survival paid in broken bones. Yet he fought not for glory but coin already earned. She swore silently that if he delivered them alive, she would repay him more than rubies. Past midnight, the gale slackened, waves settling into exhausted heaves. Corliss collapsed against the mast, chest heaving. Lyanna, too wired for sleep, tugged blankets around the twins and examined the bruises on her arms. Half-moons where rope bit flesh, blossoms where shifting benches battered skin. All would purple by dawn. She traced each mark as a tally of freedom purchased. Morning sun rose shy behind shredded clouds. Corliss steered northwest along a coastline etched in chalk cliffs. Gannets nested on ledges, their cries mournful. By noon they reached a tidal lagoon shielded by serrated rocks. Corliss lowered sail and punted into still water tinted green by algae. A forest of driftwood snags jutted like spears. "This is as far as brine kisses land," he said, shipping the sweep. "Tide's flood hides the outer teeth soon. You disembark now." Lyanna gathered the twins, pack of dwindled supplies, and Corliss' spare cloak, coarse, dark, smelling of tar. She stepped onto a slick stone ledge. Her legs, unsteady after days afloat, wobbled but held. Corliss handed her a skin of potable water and a bone-handled knife, scarcely bigger than a seam ripper, but wickedly sharp. Bogmen favor darts, not blades, but a quiet knife earns respect. She tightened the skin against her hip. "Your price grows." He shrugged. "Ruby's enough to drown a gull. I'd keep you breathing to spend more later." Retorts froze on her tongue. Instead, she extended a slender strip of braided silver hair. One of Rhaegar's harp strings nodded to her own. Corliss weighed it solemnly. "Rare metal." he murmured. Strings for a dead king's songs. Strings for lullabies yet unsung. She clasped his forearm. Tell no tongues of me, nor of these. She kissed each twin's brow, then pressed her forehead to his scarred one. May your sails find wind, coreless of the brine. And may your wolves find den, he replied. She climbed the jagged bank as the smuggler guided his craft through the shoals and back to open sea, his silhouette shrinking until wave crest devoured it. Lyanna surveyed her kingdom, a wasteland of salt marsh stretching to a distant misty tree line where reed huts might hide. Bogwater glimmered, alive with gnats. Every breath tasted of rot and peat. Yet across that endless wet lay the neck, last bastion before the north. Home. She wrapped the twins snug against her chest, crossing the sling so their weight balanced. Each breath they took warmed her sternum. She stepped into ankle-deep muck. Mud swallowed the hem of her borrowed cloak and sucked at her sandals. She pressed on, choosing raised hummocks tufted with grass. Her feet grew numb, but numbness dulled pain. The marsh shaped silence differently than desert. Here, frog croaks and insect buzz wove a constant tapestry that masked movement. Even her own heartbeat faded beneath the drone. She remembered Howland Reed's tale of green dreams guiding paths unseen. She whispered his name as charm. By dusk, she reached higher ground. An island of oak and alder no larger than Winterfell's main yard. A crude platform of woven willow sat among the branches, rope ladder coiled. Smoke curled thin from a pit covered by moss. She halted, pulse drumming. No human visible, yet the air smelled of onion broth and fish smoke. She stepped closer, raising palms. Guessed right. She called softly, though wind devoured the words. A raspy voice answered from above. Guessed right, sworn with salt and bread. You carry both. I carry bread of hardtack and salt of tears, she said. Leaves rustled. A rope ladder unfurled. Climb if you can, wolf girl. The term stilled breath. She adjusted the twins and ascended, gripping rungs with stiff fingers. At the platform edge stood a man small as a boy, sinewy as swamp willow, eyes amber green. Mud dyed his leggings, reeds plaited his hair. A frog spear leaned against the trunk. Howland Reed watched her climb like one inspects a half-remembered dream. Lyanna stepped onto rough boards. Her knees buckled, less from fatigue than relief. She managed to smile. Your grace of the marsh. Howland's grin flickered. No grace here, only reeds. But gods be kind, you live. He reached to steady her, then noticed the twins. Wonder reshaped his face. You bring two where rumor spoke of one. Rumor seldom counts true. She loosened the sling for him to see. Jonel flailed pudgy arms. Niasa blinked solemn, capturing Howland's reflection in dark eyes. Howland exhaled a prayer older than white trees. Towers crumble, vows shatter, yet life insists. He gestured inside the hut. Come. Crib's but a basket, but it rocks soft. Inside, warm rush mats covered planks. A clay brazier glowed. Lyanna laid the babes in a cradle woven of rush and willow. They nestled side by side, a matched pair of coos and sighs. Howland poured her fish broth, thick with leeks. She slurped until belly ached. Tears guttered without warning. She let them fall into the stew. Howland waited. Silent and steady as tide. When calm returned, she asked, Ned, seeking you these 8 days. We rode from the Trident expecting ransom knights, found only empty tower and graves newly dug. Kingsguard dead, Dane Hightower went, their blood on Ned's hands. Howland's voice trembled, though his face stayed flint. I held him while he wept under a bed of blue roses blackened by sun. Blue roses. Her last memory of Rhaegar's tourney gift pierced like glass. She brushed hair from Jonel's cheek. I fled before they fell. Their oaths shackled me sweeter than chains. I had to break them. Ned forgives chains broken for truth. Howland knelt. Come dawn we journey to Greywater. No host dares the shifting earth. Lyanna's grip tightened on the bowl. Robert sits throne now. He hunts dragons in cradles. He hunts names more than souls. A nameless babe's no threat. Howland regarded the twins. One wolf pup, one. What shall we call her? He touched Naeus's fist. Small as a sparrow heart. Dragonette. Storm Lily, Lyanna said, combining snow and flame. She looked to Jonel. Winterborn. Howland dipped his head. Lovely, but names carry wind. We must tie them to stones. Silence cannot move. He pointed to a basket of river clams. Carve new shells. Lyanna understood. The boy would bear northern ice, John of the frozen earth. The girl would hide amid bogs, Nessa of the green gloom. Twin truths split to keep prophecy blind. She slept curled beside the cradle. Dreams wove wolf howls with harp music until both saddened into hush. When dawn paled the thatch, Howland woke her. Mist clung to ground so thick it muffled footstep and word. They packed quickly. Dried eels, peat-wrapped cheese, bundles of herbs for fever. Howland slung the cradle against his back. Lyanna carried a spear tipped with fishbone, its half doubling as walking staff. They waded knee-deep through fog. Every dozen paces Howland paused, listened, changed direction. Islets rose like backs of drowned giants, then vanished. Twice Lyanna slipped, submerging to thigh. Bog water seeped into torn stitches, searing anew. Howland steadied her, pointing toward tufts of sedge that indicated firmer ground. Near midday, distant horns moaned. Howland flattened against peat bank. Lyanna crouched. Between reeds she glimpsed glint of helms, a patrol on dwarf ponies, sigils unseen. Their laughter drifted, coarse and certain. Robert's men. She clutched dagger handle until knuckles whitened. Naeus fussed. Howland produced a carved whistle that mimicked duck quack, gentle enough to soothe her into silence. The patrol passed. Howland exhaled. Hunters think marsh slow. They'll find only reflection of their own noise. They pressed on until dusk. At last, a tower of gray stone emerged, half sunken. Timbers laced through gaps in patchwork fashion. Ramparts sprouted willow. Cranagmen with bows watched from parapets that leaned like drunken giants. Greywater Watch floated on an island that did not truly exist. It drifted with currents, anchored by secrets. A wooden drawbridge creaked across the moat. Inside, lanterns glowed rosy. Women rushed to take the cradle. Children stared wide-eyed at the pale lady whose hair fell in matted tangles, yet whose bearing whispered of north winds and dire wolf legends. They led her to a bathing hollow where heated spring water steamed. She cleaned blood and bog from skin, hair, wounds. They offered her woven linen dyed swamp green and a leather vest trimmed in stitched rush. Howland met her in a hall of bone light, antlers strung overhead, driftwood benches. A simple meal awaited, pike roasted over peat, bread of ground lily root. Lyanna ate, then nursed the twins. They slept curled like commas inside a shared pelt. Howland poured marsh wine into reed cups. Ned marches to Lord Frey's crossing, he said. From there, north to Winterfell. I can send word. Man one. Lyanna's heart thudded. Word cannot cross roads, Robert watches. Howland nodded slowly. Then Ned must come alone, through secret ways. She traced the rim of her cup. Alone is peril. He bears Crown's favor now, Warden of the North. Abandoning host invites suspicion. We all abandon something. Howland's gaze lingered on the twins. You would part mother from child. Her throat tightened. A wolf pup must run woods that birthed him, learn howl of tribe. The dragonette must sleep where embers of prophecy cannot find her. If Robert sensed both, he'll see Rhaegar's seat in every shadow. Then she. Howland placed a palm on hers. I will shelter the girl, raise her among reeds. Forest and bog will shape different strengths. When the time comes, tide will reunite them. Lyanna's eyes brimmed. She looked at Naeus. Her tiny lips pursed in slumber. I leave half my heart with you. Cranagmen guard hearts in peat. They do not rot. He managed to smile. That night Lyanna wrote 2 letters in quill made of her own hair bound around a splinter of reed. Ink brewed from crushed berries stained the parchment, a faint violet. The first letter she addressed to Eddard Stark, Lord of Winterfell. The second she sealed without name, vowing to deliver when Moondawn asked it. She pressed each with a thumbprint of milk. Wolf on one, dragon on the other. Symbols only she would recognize. Morning fog parted to reveal a coracle disguised as a heap of reeds. Howland loaded supplies. Smoked eel, frog jerky, jars of leech balm. Lyanna kissed Nias's brow, then cradled Jonel. He yawned, unaware the world tore. She folded the wolf thread ribbon more tightly around his wrist. To Niasa, she whispered, "We will meet beyond dawns, little dreamer." She slipped the harpstring bracelet loose and handed it to Howland. Let her wear it when she first speaks. Howland tucked the silver into the swaddling. "I swear it on river and root." Lyanna stepped into the coracle with Jonel. A silent Cranagman pulled them through reed labyrinths. Greywater Watch receded like a mirage, devoured by mist. Lyanna did not look back. Her eyes would betray resolve. Instead, she fixed on Jonel's downy head and imagined Winterfell's stone warmed by flickering hearth, halls echoing with new laughter. They traveled 2 days along green paths. So labyrinthine, even ravens lost course. Night camps were speckled with candleflies that drifted like floating spells. On the third sunrise the reeds thinned, giving way to heath dotted by bleached cairns. Ahead rose the Weather Hills, spines of shale marking realm of tall folk. There the ferryman halted. "South of here tongues wag," he murmured. "Go swift, go unseen." Lyanna strapped Jonel to her chest, shouldered a bundle, and began the trek northwest. Clouds gathered, promising drizzle. She hummed under breath, each step counting backward from 1,000 to still fear. By dusk, she reached an abandoned shepherd's cot. Rain drummed the turf roof. Inside, soot-black walls still held smell of sheep. She built a small smokeless fire, warmed goat milk, and fed Jonel. He cooed and batted at shadows dancing on thatch. Her breasts ached. Nias's absence left them lopsided reminders, yet she allowed pain to brand memory. A mother's wound for a child's safety. Near midnight hoofbeats splashed outside. She snuffed the fire and crouched, dagger ready. A voice whispered her name in direwolf hush. "Ned." She opened the door. He stood dripping in gray cloak silhouette, hair plastered, eyes luminous with disbelief. He stepped inside, bolted the door, then seized her into crushing embrace. She felt his ribs, too close to skin, carved by war and worry. He smelled of horse sweat, rain, and home. She wept against his collar while he kissed her hair, her brow, the child blinking at sudden reunion. "A dream," he breathed. "When I saw the tower empty, blood upon stones, I feared. We survive." She guided his hand to Jonel's cheek. "Your nephew." Ned traced the ribbon. "And the other?" Lyanna swallowed. "Safe in the neck." Howland shelters her. Hair, wonder and sorrow mingled. "Why part them?" She met his gaze. "Because Robert honors me as sister, but he hunts dragons as beasts. One child might hide beneath ice, 2 blaze like twin comets. Divide fire and frost, sow confusion. Prophecy cannot feed on what it cannot see." "Ben?" Ned pressed forehead to hers, accepting burden heavier than any sword. "We will shield him. Name him son if need be. Brother's son invites question. Your own." She paused. "Caitlyn's pride would crack. I'll bear her wrath to spare a babe." His jaw set. "Jon Snow then, a baseborn ward of Winterfell. Snow raises no banners." She nodded, tears dimpling. "Jon, raised with true-born siblings, yet safe. And his sister?" he asked. "Niasa Reed, marsh child. When winter's song summons, Howland will send her." Ned tightened his cloak around her. We flee tonight to bypass patrols. A fishing village near Cape Kraken hides a ship bound for White Harbor. Robert's attention fixed on King's Landing. Crowns to forge, skulls to drink from. Disgust flickered in his eyes. He will sign edicts, forget paths of mud. She packed quickly. At dawn they rode. Lyanna on Ned's Garin, John swaddled in front. They skirted villages where war's embers still smoked, passing burned fields, hanging corpses claimed by crows. Lyanna whispered prayers for each broken body. Ned's mouth ached to speak comfort, yet words froze on wind. 3 nights later, they reached Cape Kraken. A one-sail cog named Storm's Mercy prepared to depart on dawn tide, hauling barrels of smoked lamprey north. Ned bribed the captain, a Northman disillusioned with southern politics, to take them aboard in secret. They boarded under Moon's last sliver. The voyage north felt kinder than the smugglers' frantic flight. Sea lanes here were patrolled by gulls, not warships. Storm's Mercy hugged coastlines littered with limestone stacks where seals barked. Lyanna slept in a rope-slung hammock, John beside her, Ned on planks below within arm's reach. She dreamed of Winterfell's glass gardens blooming with blue roses, and of Nyissa weaving reeds into crowns. On the 8th dawn, white gulls shrieked above a spreading mouth of river and breakwater towers. White Harbor, carved in pale marble streaked with salt. Ships bustled, traders from Pentos, war galleys flying stag banners of Baratheon, whalers laden with ambergris. Captain of Storm's Mercy swore none would search honest lamprey cargo. They unloaded barrels at dawn's edge while Lyanna and Ned slipped through early sparrow crowds. In the fish market square, Ned purchased a dray horse and small cart. He hid John beneath sacks of barley. They joined a merchant caravan leaving for the King's Road. Thick spring mud slowed progress, but wagons created cover. Every inn welcomed Robert's champions. None suspected grief-haunted siblings. Weeks passed under greening boughs. Lyanna's strength returned, wounds scabbed to faint scars. John thrived, cheeks rounding, eyes a shifting gray, neither holy wolf nor holy dragon. Ned caught her studying them. He bears no mark of Rhaegar, Ned offered. Prophecy leaves deeper marks than eyes can see, she replied. Only when Winterfell's towers crested the horizon did Lyanna's guarded calm tremble. Ravenstone spires framed by pine, banners limp in still air, home unchanged, though she changed beyond naming. At the gate, the portcullis rattled up. Servants gasped to see Lord Eddard return not with war banners, but with a sister thought lost. Maester Luwin hurried. Catelyn emerged pale and silent. Robb toddled, clutching her skirts. Lyanna bowed low before Catelyn's stunned eyes. Days blurred into settling. Ned explained that Lyanna escaped captivity bearing insult to honor, but came home with child of unknown father. Catelyn's lips pressed thin. Yet she offered a chamber and midwives for aftercares. Jon Snow registered as guilt branded on Ned's brow. Lyanna prayed Catelyn's courtesy would thaw over time. Nights, she walked Winterfell's godswood, cradling Jon beneath ancient weirwood eyes that watched past, present, prophecy. She whispered to the heart tree of Nyissa, of dunes and dragons, of storms survived. Sap shimmered like tears. She touched the face carved in bark and felt something like absolution. Months passed. Jon grew sturdy, quick to smile. Lyanna taught him wordless songs of water and wind. Ned handled keep affairs, brooded when ravens brought news of Robert's cruelties, of Targaryen babes dashed on walls, of Tywin's lion flaunting bloody spoils. Lyanna saw the shadow of regret settle behind Ned's eyes and knew he carried more than lordly duties. He carried the lie that Jon was his to shield. One frost-shattered dawn, a raven arrived bearing scrolls sealed with wax, the color of rust. Howland's cipher, a reed knot affixed to ribbon. Lyanna unrolled the thin birch bark. Inside, only a single down feather of a marsh owl, and one pressed petal of ghost lily, white with a silver vein. She understood. Nyssa lived, thrived among lilies, eyes bright as owl feathers. Lyanna pressed the token to her heart until her pulse matched its stillness. Years would scatter as geese on autumn wind, each leaving new tracks. Catelyn's children birthed, Robert's rule sinking into ale-drowned apathy, whispers of white walkers stirring beyond the wall. Yet beneath those tides 2 currents ran unseen, one through stark ice, one through reed water. Jon Snow, bastard boy with honor's eyes, would train with wooden swords in courtyard frost. Nyssa Reed, girl of reeds and mirage, would track egrets across whispering fens, learning to vanish where ground itself moved. On a night when newfall snow blanketed Winterfell's battlements, Lyanna sat by her window listening to dire wolves howl on distant ridge. Jon, 4 years old now, slept with a carved wolf between his hands. Lyanna touched his hair, raven dark, and thought of a sister whose curls likely tangled with moss by moonlight. She dipped quill to ink and began a letter she would not send for many seasons, addressed to 2 names never spoken in same breath. To the wolf and the dragon, 2 halves of my heart. Let this be torch for the day you find each other. Remember the lullaby of wind on water and the promise sown in blood and milk. That divided you were spared, but united you will mend a world broken by crowns and prophecies alike. She sealed the parchment, hid it within a hollow brick beside Hearthstone, and breathed a prayer to old gods tangled with new. Outside, snowflakes drifted like silent petals, settling equally upon towers of men and trees older than memory, veiling the land in a hush that promised, for a heartbeat, peace enough for children to dream. End of Part 2. Oh, Kai, Andi. Dawn seeped pale through Winterfell's high window slits, painting razor edges on the furs draped along Lyanna's chamber wall. She had never grown entirely comfortable in these rooms. She had chosen them for their quiet, a stone's throw from the rookery, tucked beyond the maester's turret. They were meant for visiting bannermen and retained the lingering scent of old cedar and juniper oil. But they lacked the hearthside bustle of the Stark family wing. That privacy protected Jon, yet it also walled her from the easy warmth flowing between Ned, Catelyn, and their swelling brood. She awoke before the first horn, as she did each day, a touch of nervousness skittering across her ribs like a field mouse. She reached over the fur pile and brushed her fingers across Jon's small shoulder. The child slept beside her whenever the nightmares came. Nightmares that had begun 3 moons ago, full of churning water and a shadowed tower crowned with red rain. Jon's fists would clench the blankets, a soft growl forming in his chest, as though he remembered a place he had never seen. Lyanna slid from the bed, shivering while her feet found the wool slippers with wolf-head toggles. For a long moment, she watched the child's face. His dark lashes flickered, hinting at a dream winding through his mind. She wondered, as she often did, whether Nyssa dreamed the same images, hundreds of leagues south, beneath moss-curtained treetops. Some nights Lyanna felt certain she had heard 2 voices in Jon's soft whimpers, one restless cadence rising, the other answering in calm echoes. In those moments she near believed the milk bond of twins could stretch thin threads from bog to snow. She smoothed a curl from Jon's brow and moved to dress. Her own garments were simple. A tunic of deep brown wool, trousers soft with age, a sleeveless jerkin Ned's armorers had stitched from boiled leather, thin enough for a woman's frame. Lyanna's days of dancing at tourneys in sky-blue silks felt another lifetime. Now she wielded practice swords with young squires in the yard, sparred against Theon Greyjoy when the iron-born ward fancied himself clever. Jon often watched, wide-eyed, parroting every step later among the kennels. She belted her small bone knife, Corlys' gift, at her hip and leaned over the bed. "Morning, little storm," she whispered. Jon stirred, blinking, then smiled broad as daylight. He never called her mother. She had taught him not to. In the keep's corridors he addressed her as Aunt Lya, the title that best eased Catelyn's fragile courtesy. But alone, he would grip her hand and say, "My son," and that was enough. After morning ablutions, they descended spiral stairs to the Godswood. Ned waited, sword belt buckled for dawn practice with Roderick Castle's pupils. Frost silvered his beard now. War had aged him more swiftly than seasons, yet serenity gathered in the lines around his eyes whenever he stood beneath the heart tree. Lyanna approached, Jon trotting by her side. "Brother." she greeted, dipping her head. Ned turned, lips twitching at the sight of Joan's mop of unruly hair. "Sister." His gaze softened on the boy. "Ready for your lessons?" John nodded but hooked his thumb toward Lyanna. "Auntie promised the kennels first." "Very well." Ned knelt, meeting the child eye level. "Remember, listen to Sir Roderick. Keep your feet light, and do not strike to hurt. We practice to master ourselves, not to wound." John said the words alongside him. They had spoken them so often they formed a catechism. Ned ruffled the boy's curls, then rose. Turning to Lyanna. "A raven from White Harbor. Lord Manderley invites us to his harvest feast, come fortnight. The journey may soothe minds wearied by stone walls." He lowered his voice. "And perhaps distance us from whispers." Lyanna followed his gaze to where Maester Lewin spoke quietly with Caitlin at the yard's edge. Of late, rumors had doubled like spring rabbits. Some said John was Ned's bastard by a fisherwife. Others claimed Lyanna herself had birthed him of some foreign hedge knight. Caitlin's silence fed the fire. She did not openly scorn the child, but tension vibrated between her ribs each time John scurried beneath her notice. Lyanna pitied the lady. Marriage forged on war's ashes seldom cooled true, but pity offered no shield to John. "Perhaps the journey," she murmured, "though the road south draws eyes as well." She shook off the worry. "We will speak after supper." Ned clasped her forearm gently. "Winter's winds may rise, but they cannot bury truth forever. We will weather them, wolf sister." She smiled, honest and sad. He turned towards Sir Roderick's queue of eager lads, and she guided John up the slope past steaming dung heaps toward the kennel yard. The direwolf pack, no direwolves yet, only Lord Rickon's dreams, had not returned to the north in her lifetime. But stark hounds retained a streak of that wild blood. The master of hounds, Arnor, greeted them with a nod. "Little Lord Snow," Arnor joked, though he used the title with more affection than mockery. "Pups have grown as tall as your hip. Ready to test their noses?" John knelt beside a brindle pup, fingers gentle behind its ears. "This one's Greywing," he insisted, though Arnor reminded him its litter name was merely Patch. John whispered the pup's true name again, and Lyanna felt a prickling warmth. Greywing. She wondered if somewhere Nissa tugged egrets from rushes, naming them skyward things. The morning passed in tundra-blue breezes. John traced scent trails, hid scraps of cured rabbit for the pups to find, then fetched wooden swords in the courtyard. Lyanna stood by the training circle's low stone rim as he squared off against Bran. Niddle air, while Rob and Theon sparred on the far mat. Sir Roderick corrected stances, shifting Joan's feet outward, reminding Bran to keep his blade up. Lyanna's chest fluttered each time the wooden edges clacked. John fought with uncanny balance for a child scarcely taller than the sword. He predicted Bran's second thrust before Bran moved. His body wove instinctively, like rushes bending to unseen angles of wind. When practice ended, and the boys limped away laughing, Lyanna followed John to the well, poured cold water across his brow, and dabbed bruised knuckles with woundwort balm D. He winced, but thanked her with a grin, then scampered after Rob toward the kitchens. Watching them vanish, Lyanna allowed her shoulders to sag. She retreated to her chamber, unfastened the damp jerkin, and replaced it with an embroidered wool cloak at which she had been stitching blue blossoms in stolen hours. Ghost roses. She did not know why. Perhaps a penance or anchor, to keep memory from drifting. Her eyes blurred, needle trembling. She pressed fingertips to eyelids and forced thoughts south. Neasis' last token, the feather and lily, rested beneath a loose mortar stone she had pried weeks ago. She lifted it now, inspecting the down. It smelled faintly of peat and sweet water. She pictured the girl, now 4 summers old, perhaps chasing crane flies along shifting banks. She pictured Howland instructing her in the spear, teaching her the myths of the children of the forest, the language of thrush whistles. Nyssa would be fearless, yet cunning. Like her father, Hagar's boldness tempered by stark quiet. Lyanna prayed she might remain unseen by those who would twist her birth into cause for war. Later she found Caitlin on the ramparts, gazing over the snow-flecked roofs. Cold wind tugged at copper hair half unbound from a braid. Lyanna approached cautiously. The lady's straight back and stiff grip on the stone parapet spoke of restless worry. "Is something amiss?" Lyanna asked. Caitlin startled, then offered a thin smile. "Only my own thoughts. Winter is coming, and with it, fears that crawl through keyholes." "Damn." Lyanna joined her, leaning beside the parapet. "I know those fears too well." Caitlin exhaled a plume. "Joan's place here. I confess I struggle, not for the child's sake. He is sweet, but for my own son's. Rob adores him. Bran follows his every step. When they spar, I see rivalries born." She looked down, shame flickering. "And I think of Ned's honor, in tatters, folk whisper. Or else your own. I understand why he shelters you, but the cost?" Her voice trailed. Lyanna touched the lady's arm lightly. "I cannot unweave the threads without fraying more. I only ask you judge John for his own deeds, not mine. One day he may guard your sons more fiercely than any sellsword you could hire." Caitlin studied her. "I believe that, perhaps. Yet the realm can be cruel." She clasped Lyanna's hand. "When Ned rides to Manderley, I will watch the boy. But you must promise no more secrets worsen his burden." Lyanna hesitated. Half-truths had been her shield for years. But the plea in Caitlin's eyes was earnest. "I promise," she breathed, cursing herself for a vow she might not keep. Snow fell early that year. Flakes drifted by the time Ned, Lyanna, and a small entourage set out. John remained behind under Caitlin's supervision. He watched the column depart through slotted shutters in the library, Maester Lewin at his side. Lyanna turned once in the saddle to wave. She felt her heart tug, but safety in Winterfell's walls outweighed longing. The journey to White Harbor took 6 days. Along the forested track, banners of the flayed man fluttered from newly repaired palisades. House Bolton's oath renewed after rebellion. Lyanna's fingers tightened on her reins each time those red and pink skins stared from poles. Bolton men saluted Ned politely, but behind polished visors a hunger lurked. She kept her knives close. At White Harbor, Lord Manderley welcomed them with grand feasts. The port's scent, salt, smoked cod, tar, awakened Lyanna's memories of Brine Corliss and the storm whose waves had nearly claimed her. She stood by the harbor wall, one green twilight, while gulls wheeled overhead, and found her gaze lured to distant southern horizons. Somewhere beyond those swells, Nessa lived out a quieter story. Lyanna closed her eyes and breathed. A horn blast cut through gull cries. She opened her eyes to see a war galley, sails black against pale sky, slipping into the harbor. It flew the crowned stag sigil. Word spread swift. Sir Barristan Selmy arrived, bearing King Robert's summons to Winterfell. The king, restless in King's Landing, wished to see Ned after long separation. Lyanna's stomach plummeted. Robert still blamed dragons for the fires of his grief. Would he look upon Joan's dark hair and glimpse Regard's ghost? She swallowed dread. In Manderley's grand hall, Sir Barristan bowed before Ned, then extended a scroll sealed with gilded wax. Ned broke the seal, scanned the words, and looked up. "His Grace will ride north at the first flush of spring. He desires to hunt in our forests and pay respects at my father's tomb." Ned's tone remained steady, but Lyanna spotted the nuance. Robert meant to judge Winterfell's strength and remind all of his victory. Ned bowed to Sir Barristan. "I will relay my welcome." That night, Manderley's minstrels played loud to drown the undercurrent of unease. Lyanna danced with Ned, swirling across the reed-strewn floor, but her thoughts spiraled toward the child she had left behind. Robert's visit, even months away, could ignite deadly interest in the boy Ned called Snow. She sought Ned's eyes mid-dance. They shared silent dread. The harpist plucked a tune reminiscent of Rhaegar's sad music, and Lyanna felt the floor shift beneath her. On the return, Ned rode ahead as scouts mapped the fastest winter road. Lyanna lingered at the column's tail. She felt each pine needle beneath the mare's hooves like snapping bones. When Winterfell's gatehouse finally crested view, She spurred forward. Inside she found the yard lit by torches. John sparred with Rob under Sir Roderick's eye, both clad in padded jackets dusted with frost. Lyanna dismounted and hurried to them. John noticed her, grin blossoming. He shouted, waving the practice blade. Rob used the distraction to deliver a light tap on Joan's shoulder. John laughed and conceded the point. Lyanna swept him into her arms despite his protests, breathing his warm hair. Caitlin approached, cheeks pink from wind. She smiled politely. They practiced daily. John improved swiftly. Then so. Lyanna let relief flood her limbs. Later, as night blanketed Winterfell, she met Ned beside the heart tree. Fresh snow drifted, muffling their boots. They spoke quietly, breath pluming white. "Robert comes north," Lyanna said. Ned nodded. "I fear for John, but we cannot send him away now without drawing curiosity. He must remain, bastard and unassuming. Robert's wrath might kindle at mere sight. He will see only my byblow," Ned insisted. "A king with a belly full of ale rarely hunts ghosts." Yet his brow wrinkled. Lyanna pressed her palm to the red sap face. She felt the weirwood's ancient pulse. "I must trust you. But I will drill John harder, teach him humility and silence." "No harp strings?" Ned's sorrow glinted. "And Nyssa, she stays hidden." But she thought of the king's scouts ranging the neck for wild boar or brigand. So many threads risked tangling. Seasons turned. John reached 10 years, quick of wit, deft with bow. He spent long mornings in the rookery, gleaning raven speech from Maester Luwin. Nights, Lyanna told him stories of the first men and the pact beneath the weirwood boughs. Sometimes in the glow of their hearth he asked about mothers, why some children had two, others none. Lyanna chose her lies carefully. "One day," she promised, "truth will find you. Until then, measure strength by the kindness you carry." He accepted, though confusion flickered. He found comfort in the pups, now full-grown hounds, particularly Greywing, who followed his heel like shadow. Bran teased that pup and boy shared one mind. John grinned and said the world was brighter with shared senses. Far south, a tremor of prophecy stirred among the reeds. Nyssa turned 10 as pale winter breath touched the neck. She outpaced the boys in spear drills, could dive beneath peat pools, and emerge half a mile away from hidden tunnels. She conversed with frogs, or so the other Crannog children claimed. And sometimes, when dusk smudged sky to bruise, she lay upon hummock moss, closed her eyes, and dreamt of snow spirals, and stone halls humming like cellos. In those dreams a wolf with white and black fur trotted beside her, and a boy swung a stick against straw dummies. Laughter echoing. She woke always smiling, though a tear brightened one cheek. Howland Reed had watched her gift grow like lily stems beneath still water. He taught her the language of green dreams, the sparks that flickered when the gods whispered through root and water. Nyssa listened, yet each new dream of winter whiteness drew questions he could not answer. So he told her the old tales, of knights who would cross swords for honor, of shadows that walk on ice, of songs shaped by harp and by howling winds. In the telling, her eyes shone like polished jet. One evening, near midwinter, as the full moon hung like a shard of ghost glass, Nyssa entered her reed-weave hut and found Howland seated by the brazier holding a rolled bark scroll bound with twin ribbons. "One gray, one silver." He motioned her closer. "Time may soon braid south to north," he said. "These ribbons were sewn on the day you drew first breath. One belongs in your keeping now." He untied the silver ribbon, Rahagar's harp string. Nyssa brushed it with forefinger. Static tingled up her arm. "What does it mean?" she asked. "Legacy," Howland answered. He looped the thin cord around her wrist, knotting it snug. "And a promise. That you are never alone, even when bog mist muffles every track. Hold it when doubt seeps." Nyssa lifted the wrist, watching moonlight catch the metal. "Will I travel beyond the neck? In threads yet untangled, yes. But travel prepared. Prophecy seldom chooses easy roads." She stared into the brazier's coals. "I see melted snow in dreams. A boy with a wolf." Howland's shoulders tensed, though he masked with humor. "Summer fever, perhaps." I'm not sick. She met his gaze unwavering. The wolf and the boy are real. Howland turned the scroll between his hands. Real, but distant. Fate carries them like leaves along rivers. For now, protect your dreams. In time, rivers converge. Nyssa accepted the cryptic counsel. Later, when alone, she walked to the pool beneath the mangrove arch and dipped the ribbon in cold water. Ripples shimmered. For a heartbeat, she felt other ripples returning, echoes that brushed in her ear like distant laughter. She smiled. Midwinter, across many leagues, Winterfell awaited Robert's progress. The king's outriders preceded him by a fortnight, hammering down the king's road with stag banners flapping. Lyanna drilled Jon thrice daily and reminded him to bow low, speak little. Catelyn rehearsed the household, curtsies, banquets, linen stocks. Yet tension skewered every hallway. The day the royal column arrived, Winterfell's gates swung wide. Robert barreled through astride a massive black destrier, belly straining satin doublet. Smile radiant, cheeks flushed from ale. Beside him rode Queen Cersei in Lannister green, her children spaced like polished figurines. Jaime Lannister shimmered behind, golden and watchful. But Lyanna's gaze fixed on Robert. Would recognition spark? She kept to the back line as Ned advanced. Jon stood with the younger squires, garbed in plain brown cloak. Robert dismounted, clapped Ned against breastplate, roared pleasantries. Then his eyes swept the yard, lingering on Catelyn, on the direwolf banners, on Robb and Bran. At last, they skimmed the row of squires where Jon waited, chin lowered. Lyanna's heart hammered. Robert squinted, amusement flickering. That one, he bellowed to Ned, pointing. The dark cub, yours. Ned's pause lasted half a breath. Enough. Your grace. My son. Bastard Bran. Robert's grin turned mellow. We made a few of those in our day, eh? Let him come forward. Jon obeyed, stepping wide-legged like a young soldier. He bowed deeply, hair shielding his face. Robert eyed him, then thumped his shoulder. You've cold eyes, boy. Good. The North will need cold eyes when winter gnaws. Keep your blade keen. Jon murmured gratitude. Robert turned away, laughter booming. Lyanna exhaled. She saw relief ripple across Ned's shoulders. Catelyn's expression tightened, but her eyes glimmered with small compassion as Jon retreated to line. During the feast, Robert drank strong wine and swapped war tales. He flirted with serving maids, glared at Stannis when the Lord tried to discuss crown finances, slapped Ned's back with bruising affection. Cersei sat coiled like a viper, golden hair helmed by emeralds. Her eyes slid over Lyanna with cold appraisal, perhaps sensing weight behind the Stark woman's guarded poise. Lyanna returned the look with equal chill, though dread prickled. After the third course, Robert insisted on a tour of Winterfell's crypts. Ned complied, though shadows lengthened. They descended torchlit stairs. Lyanna followed at distance with Jon, Bran, and the royal children. The underground hall smelled of dust and musk. Robert paused before Lyanna's effigy, sculpted many years prior in her absence. He stared at the stone wolf and rose crown upon her brow. Strange seeing my lost love twice in one day, he murmured, glancing at the living Lyanna behind him. Soft wonder colored his ale-rough voice. But stone cannot dull the real flame. You grow more wolf than rose, Lya. Ben? Lyanna bowed lightly. Stone remembers only what the sculptor knew. People change. Robert's eyes glossed. He turned to Jon. You, boy, know these catacombs. I serve candles when Septa's feet weaken, Jon answered carefully. Good lad. Dead kings deserve light. Robert's gaze moved on. Ned's shoulders tensed. In the deep chamber, they paid respects to the old kings of winter. Robert's loud reflections disguised Lyanna's frantic pulse. Jon shadowed her silently. She reached and squeezed his hand once. He squeezed back, unseen by others. The silent promise buoyed her. Weeks passed. The king's party departed, and Winterfell breathed easier. Yet whispers grew, of Cersei's cutting glares, of Lannister ears pricked for scandal. Ned counseled patience, But Lyanna sensed a gathering storm. As spring thaw drizzled from rooftops, ravens arrived bearing grim tidings. Southern lords petitioned King Robert to investigate rumored Targaryen infants, said to live in Qohor under Braavosi bank protection. Robert's small council clamored for assassins. Dragons remained talisman of dread. Lyanna's spine chilled. If the crown still hunted across narrow sea, would a marsh-born girl draw nets next? She spent nights crafting escape contingencies. Secret passphrases for Howland, caches of coins near the neck, false identities for Nyasa. She wrote coded letters in lemon juice ink and passed them to trustworthy merchant captains bound for White Harbor. Songs of lilies and owls meaning stay hidden. One afternoon, she oversaw Joan's archery near the butts. Snowmelt slicked the yard. Theon boasted of ironborn reaving. Robb lectured him about honest duels. Bran, younger still, begged to shoot. Jon offered his own bow, guiding Bran's grip as Lyanna watched with fondness. Bran released too soon. The arrow veered toward a kennel post where Cersei's youngest, Tommen, visiting with his mother's retinue, stood gawking. Lyanna lunged, snatching the shaft mid-flight. The feat, done without thought, drew gasps. Tommen shrieked, guards rushed, chaos erupted. Cersei stormed from the solar, green silk swirling. Who threatens my son? Her eyes settled on Jon, hand outstretched as though in blame. Lyanna stepped forth. No threat, your grace. Merely poor aim. The boy Bran misjudged wind. Cersei's gaze flicked from Lyanna's steady stance to the arrow she held, a potential weapon. She smiled, sharp as ice. And who taught northern bastards to catch arrows mid-flight? A rare skill. Any mother defends a child, Lyanna said. Mother? Cersei repeated, interest igniting. I thought the bastard's mother unknown. Ned arrived, voice iron. Enough. The queen impuns loyal guests. Cersei raised palms. I question only safety. Next time, shoot straw, not princes. She pivoted away, but suspicion laced her gaze. Lyanna sensed danger spool. That night, she found a stable boy slipping into her chamber with a note. No house sigil. Only a smeared wax blob. Inside, parchment scrawled, your past hunts you. Keep the bastard from the queen or graves open. Unknown hand at wall. She burned the message, heart hammering. She sought Ned under moonlit battlements. Lannisters sniffed truth. He rubbed weary eyes. Cersei's malice chases every shadow. But we must not flee. Running feeds rumors. If rumors spark, they burn. Ned nodded reluctantly. I'll speak with Robert. Remind him of the loyalty he owes to House Stark. And if Robert listens to Cersei's poison, then we gird for winter in earnest. Hundreds of leagues away, Nyasa waded knee-deep through lily pads at dusk. Frogs croaked symphonies. She balanced a reed spear across shoulders, eyes scanning ripples for eel sign. At 13, she stood slim, sinewy, hair a black cascade like river shadows shot with moon. The silver harp string circled her wrist still, though not loosened now. She halted, hairs pricking. Water beyond reeds swirled though no fish broke surface. A ripple, too large. A boat hove into view, cutting peat, silently. Its single passenger wore leather and mail. A gold brooch glinted. Not Cranagman. Nysa crouched. Spear ready. The rower scanned marshline. Reeds, he called softly. In peace. She slid silent through sedge until she reached willow trunk vantage. The man anchored near a mudbank and produced a small horn. He blasted thrice. Notes of direwolf howl. Nysa froze. That call Howland had taught as family sigil. She considered, then stepped forward. I keep this water, she announced. The man turned, startled. Young, field lean, with stark gray in his cloak lining. A Winterfell messenger. He bowed. I seek Howland Reed. Message from Lord Eddard. Nysa gestured toward deeper marsh. Follow the owl path. She whistled a pattern. Moments later, 3 Crannog bowmen surfaced, escorting the boat. Nyssa watched. Curiosity gnawed. At edge of tree line she fetched a hollow reed tube and placed lips to it, blowing thrice. The signal told Howland she wanted counsel when message read. Hours later, in Howland's root chamber, torch glow flickered as he unrolled parchment. Nyssa waited on haunches. Howland's brow furrowed deeper line by line. At last he folded the paper, eyes shadowed. "Winterfell faces peril," he said. "The Lannister queen suspects truths best buried." Nyssa's stomach dipped. "My brother. He lives, but danger nips." Howland looked at her with something like resignation bleeding into resolve. "The time to unify twin threads approaches sooner than I hope." Nyssa's pulse quickened. Excitement. Fear. "We leave the neck?" "Not yet, but soon. I must plan safe passage through watchful eyes." He inhaled. "You've trained for shadows your whole life, little Lily. Would you brave them?" She straightened. "For the wolf brother in my dreams, yes." Howland's small smile trembled. "Then gather what memories you cherish. When the marsh lights echo thrice, we move." At Winterfell, Lyanna considered flight. She stashed emergency packs near the stable loft, cloaks, dried rations, silver stags. She drilled Jon in silent feet, hidden exits. But departure meant abandoning Ned, sisters, duty. And leaving might lure suspicion onto those she left behind. Instead she played hound to rumor, eavesdropped corridors. Queen Cersei interrogated stable hands, offered coin for tales of Lyanna's whereabouts during rebellion. Some servants babbled false stories, an affair with a Dothraki Khal, a northern barmaid. But none matched truth. One night, Lyanna slipped to the rookery to dispatch coded warning to Howland. "Crowsway lilies. Tide ready." She heated citron ink by candle. Scribbled runes on wafer-thin ribbon. Sealed inside Raven's leg tube. The bird launched into falling snow. She prayed sky god's shield wings. She emerged onto the turret walkway and halted. Jaime Lannister leaned on the parapet, golden cloak trimmed with crimson. His easy smile cut moonlit cold. "Lady Lyanna." He greeted softly. Though protocol said, "Lady Stark," she bowed slightly. "Sir Jaime enjoys the chill. I tire of southern heat." He studied snowflakes melting on polished gauntlet. "I also enjoy puzzles. Reading men, reading alliances, and rumors." Lyanna kept features stone still. "Rumors are wind chimes, flutter loud but ring hollow." "Perhaps." He met her gaze. "Yet the melody can unveil where locked doors creak. I've heard of a certain Crannog prince who visited you 2 decades past. Some claim he saw sorcery in Dorne." "Bah." Lyanna's throat tightened. "Crannog folk spin yarns thicker than webs. I wouldn't trust them near a hearth." Jaime chuckled. "Nor would I trust kings who slay their own." His eyes, green and intense, flicked past her to the sky where the raven dwindled. "Birds carry secrets, my lady." Sometimes they circle back. He inclined his head and strolled off, boots crunching frost. Lyanna watched him vanish, blood roiling. Jaime's threats were veiled, but cunning. She returned to her chamber and found Jon awake, sitting cross-legged atop furs, candle guttering beside him. He looked up, eyes glinting. "Dream again?" she asked, sliding beside. He nodded. "A girl stood in water. She called my name but without sound. I tried to walk toward her but marsh swallowed my feet." Lyanna swallowed hard. "Did you reach her?" He shook head. "A wolf pulled me back. Greywing, I think. Then I woke." Lyanna drew him into embrace. "Dreams guide. We must heed them carefully." "Who is she?" "Someone who will matter greatly." Lyanna brushed hair back. "Sleep now. Tomorrow you ride with Maester to collect herbs." "Ben?" Jon climbed under pelts. Lyanna held his hand until breath slowed. As she watched the candle dying, her mind hammered. Time raced them toward convergence. In King's Landing, newsmonger birds reached Varys the Spider. Rumors of a boy in Winterfell with Rhaegar's eyes. Varys weighed the words, measured them against whispers of Nyssa Reed. a marsh phantom with silver-lined wristband. He drafted a soft parchment to Lord Petter Baelish. Seeds in snow, seeds in mud. Which bloom will wear the crown? The game quickened. Back in the north. Spring melt burst rivers. Howland signaled with marsh lights thrice. Nessa packed dried fish, a carved frog talisman, eel-skin gloves. She hugged Reed's siblings and followed her father into night fog. They traveled by pole boat through twisting channels, emerged onto the King's Road disguised as peddlers of Leechwater's salve. Nissa wore hood of coarse flax, silver ribbon hidden beneath sleeve. They kept west of Weeping Water, avoiding holdfasts where Lannister men quartered under pretense of tax counting. In Winterfell, ravens brought coded signal. Mist creeps north. Lyanna saw it. Heartbeat thundering. She sought Ned privately. "Nissa comes," she said. Ned paced. "Good or ill?" Lannister spies coil thicker than ever. "We'll shelter her in crypts." Ned frowned. "A girl raised on marsh sun may pale in stone dark. She will endure." He halted by arrow slit, snow-slushed courtyard beyond. When twins reunite, truth unravels. Robert may denounce treason, or accept prophecy's fracture heals realm. "He loved me once. Love soured to memory." Ned sighed. "Yet, we cannot deny blood forever. If they meet, oath built on false father shatters." "Then?" Lyanna set jaw. "Better shattered truth than living lie." Ned set hand on her shoulder. "Then we prepare." 3 weeks of cautious travel brought Howland and Nissa within a day's ride of Winterfell. They sheltered in an abandoned tanning shed, the reek of lye lingering. Snow flurried outside. Howland stirred thin rabbit stew, while Nissa sharpened frog spear into steel-tipped javelin. "Tomorrow we cross Last River's ford?" Howland murmured. Past there, amber lanterns mark fisherman's trail to Wintertown. Nissa nodded, but her gaze distant. "He feels near." Howland's eyes softened. "Blood calls." She unrolled a small scrap of bark, inked runes swirling. "I dreamt again. A crypt door opening, roots across stone. Crypts." Howland whispered. "Ancestors' watch meeting." Midnight wind rattled shingle. Nissa paused, head cocked. "Riders, but..." Howland doused fire. They crouched near shutter gaps. 2 lanterns bobbed along the road, horses snorting. Shadows cast across snow, one slender, one broad dotty. Voices. "Ensure the bog creatures pass this route. Queen's coin fattens purses." Nissa's pulse quickened. "Lannister agents." Howland whispered. "We slipped the back." They hefted packs, crept out through rotted wall, and melted into spruce darkness. Hoofbeats passed close. Lantern glow sliced trunks but did not find them. They waited breathless until sounds faded, then angled northeast through knee-high drifts. Journey now urgent. At dawn, a Wintertown fisher boy burst into the gatehouse, breathless, claiming 2 strangers skirted the icy shoals. Lyanna stood beside Ned atop battlements as watchmen relayed word. She recognized Howland's coded description. Bogman with willow staff. Girl ghost-like. Heart leapt. "We ride," she told Ned. They saddled swift garrons and galloped through spring slush. Beyond Last River's ford they spotted figures trudging. Howland supporting Nissa, her cloak sodden. Lyanna spurred ahead, dismounted, and half ran. Nissa saw the rider, hesitated, then recognition flared. Dream images aligning to waking. Lyanna swept her into embrace, tears burning cold cheeks. Howland bowed, weary. "Hunters close," he warned. Ned arrived, scanning treeline. "Then hurry." They mounted Nissa behind Lyanna, Howland behind Ned, and dashed for Winterfell. But pursuers gained. 3 riders in black and gold, bows strung. Arrows hissed. One grazed Ned's cloak. Gate guards saw the chase, lifted crossbows, loosed bolts that struck pursuing mounts. Horses screamed. The Lannister agents veered off. Inside gates, Lyanna slid to ground, cradling Nissa. John burst from kennel yard, Greywing barking. He froze, eyes widening. Across the yard, Nyssa stepped forward. The air seemed to hush. Snowflakes stalling. Brother and sister regarded each other, recognition blooming beyond sight. Two heartbeats once nested beneath same ribs now echoing again. John smiled. Shy but bright. Nyssa mirrored. They stepped, met halfway, and clasped hands. Greywing sniffed the girl's palm, tail wagging. Lyanna felt tears spill unchecked. Ned stood behind, gaze solemn, as though seeing prophecy incarnate. Howland exhaled relief. Caitlin hurried across yard with Rob and Bran. She halted, taking in scene. Marsh girl, identical to John in eyes and bone, yet wearing outsider garb. Realization struck. Her mouth parted. Lyanna braced for anger, but Caitlin surprised with calm. "We will talk," she declared. Voice firm yet not unkind. She guided children toward hall. In the great keep, fire blazed. John and Nyssa sat side by side, whispering. They compared dreams, towers, marsh, wolf song. Their laughter intertwined like braids. Lyanna listened, heart swelling. Ned addressed the gathered inner circle. "Caitlin, Howland, Maester Lewin, Sir Roderick." He explained, carefully, that Nyssa was foster of House Reed, come to study Northways. Lies again, but tempered. Caitlin's eyes glowed with revelation. She stared at Lyanna, perhaps measuring truths hidden. Finally she said, "Let the children be children tonight. We settle questions later." Lyanna touched her arm in gratitude. Outside snow thickened. But in Winterfell's hearthroom, two twins rediscovered halves of themselves. John fetched chalk and parchment. Nyssa illustrated bog maps. They giggled at each other's accents. Greywing stretched between them, content. Lyanna watched flamelight dance across their faces. Similar yet distinct. Joan's eyes held quiet storms, Nyssa's calm depths, but flickers of wildfire. She realized prophecy had not split but multiplied. Two blades forged from one steel, tempered in different fires, each bearing edge the world would soon need. In distant King's Landing, Varys learned of Lannister agents lost in North Snows. He whispered to Illyrio in Bravos. The song gains harmony. Cersei fumed, demanding answers. Robert drank, uninterested. But far beyond southern politics, beyond the wall, white shadows stirred. Something old smelled twins return, ice remembering fire. In months to follow, Jon and Nyssa trained together, complementing. He sword, she spear. He logic, she intuition. They spoke under moon in Godswood, weaving plans for future quests. To chase wildlings, find dragons, heal the land. Ned watched with pride, fear, wonder. Lyanna dreamed again of harp strings and direwolves howling harmony. One summer eve, Jon asked Lyanna, "What if the world needs both wolf and dragon as one?" Lyanna's throat tightened. She met Nyssa's gaze. The girl's silver ribbon gleamed. Lyanna knelt before them. "Then you will stand back to back, as you did before you were born, and face whatever comes. Together. Promise?" They joined hands, nodding grave. Greywing barked assent. Overhead, ravens crossed crimson sunset, wings etching runes of destiny on sky. Lyanna rose, exhaling. She had spent years fleeing prophecy. Severing it for safety. Now, seeing them there, unbroken, she understood. Prophecy fracturing had not quenched its power, only delayed its bloom. The choice ahead belonged to the twins, and she would walk beside them, shield in one hand, hope in the other. For the first time since fleeing the Tower of Joy, she allowed herself to feel the tremor of something dangerously like faith. Night settled. Snow melted from roofs in quiet drips. In the crypts, candles flickered before long-dead kings, their stone wolves casting towering shadows. Down in those depths, two new candles had been lit by Jon and Nyssa, side by side, small flames, but stubborn, refusing to gutter. Their twin glow painted the carved faces with a warmth no mason ever carved. A promise whispered into stone. Winter may come, dragons may rise, but the fire and the frost would meet the darkness together.